Well, a huge welcome back to the Referral Mastery course. So glad that you're still on the journey with me. And as you're going to see over the final sessions, we're heading into the final 5 sessions now. I'm going to start bringing together everything you've learned. We've still got a few more pieces of the puzzle to kind of put in place. But then over the last couple of sessions, I'm going to step back and look at the whole system as a whole, as an integrated system. And you're going to be far clearer at the end of that as to exactly what your daily, weekly, and monthly goals are going to be to implement the system as a whole. So today I want to look at this whole idea of scripts and dialogues. You've already, as we're going to look at the apple tree now, just to recap, we've already looked at 4 of the 6 dialogues that I'm going to be teaching you. These are the 6 major dialogues to be able to work by referral. Let's talk about scripts and dialogues. Let's talk about role playing. What place should that have in your business as a real estate agent? But before we get into that, today being session 10, I want to do a recap looking at the apple tree. So this is how your tree should look at this point. We began looking at the apple tree itself, the database, and we said you begin by building, sorting, capturing, and then priming a database of ideally 300 advocates. You can start with 100, try to work your way up to 300 advocates, and then behind that you've got this big B list with as many names and email addresses on that list as you can possibly get permission to keep in touch with. During that discussion on building the database, we looked at the first 2 dialogues there, the database primer and the database filter dialogue. The database primer, that's that phone call that you placed to all 300 advocates where you said to them, I'm starting to work by referral and I'm trying to get clear on who it is who would actually be happy to refer me. Could I ask you, if you were buying or selling your home, you had a friend or a family member who was, am I the agent you would refer? And they had to say yes to that question in order to get onto your advocate list. That was the first dialogue, the database primer. Then we looked at the database filter, which is very similar, but that's the secret weapon that you've got in your back pocket always when you're out and about and you're meeting new people. You've got this question that if you get a chance to ask it, you would say, hey, if you were buying or selling your home or you had a friend or a family member was, do you have an agent you would refer them to? If they say no, you say, great, I've got a program. I keep people informed about what's happening on the property market on a monthly basis. I'd love to keep in touch with you. How does that sound? They say, that sounds great. Keep in touch. What's the best email address to get you on? And then you add them onto your B list. So the first 2 dialogues we looked at, then we shifted our attention across to written communication, and we've been looking at the major written communication tools that you're going to use as part of your whole Trusted Advisor program. We looked at handwritten notes and the power of handwritten notes, and we looked at items of value. Specifically, we said every month you are going to send out an item of value that either communicates character, so personal in nature, or competence, professional in nature, and you need a mix of items of value, and you send them out as hard copy to your advocates, and then as a digital copy to everyone, to your advocates and to your B list in essentially what is going to be your monthly newsletter. Then we looked at the 2 letters you're going to use to launch your program. When you send your very first batch of items of value, they will either go with the TAP intro letter or with the guilt pledge letter. That's the people you're pleading guilty and you said, I haven't kept in touch. My bad. I'm sorry, but I'm going to do better in the future. We then looked at referral rewards. That was in our last session. How do you respond to referrals when you get them? And as part of that discussion, we talked about how to reward people. We said use vouchers or gift cards because you can mail them in a handwritten note. Very powerful. We also looked at the next 2 dialogues, the harvester dialogue, which was the dialogue you're going to use with your advocates. And I said, don't overlook how important that one is. When we get to phone calls later in our next session, we're actually going to start talking about personal contact. On every single phone call you make to an advocate, at the end of the phone call, you are going to say these words. Oh, by the way, Mr. Jones, if you know anyone thinking of buying or selling their home and appreciate the level of service I provide, please call me with the details and I promise to look after anybody you refer to me. That's the harvester dialogue. It harvests the referrals that you've been cultivating in your advocates. You've got to go out and get those referrals. You've got to ask. And then the next dialogue was the lead warmer, so that when you get a referral to Mrs. Edwards from Mr. Jones, you say to Mr. Jones, thank you so much for the referral to Mrs. Edwards. Really do appreciate your support. Could I ask you to do me a favor, please? Sure, Stephen. It makes my job a lot easier if Mrs. Edwards is expecting my call. Would you mind just giving her a call and letting her know that I'll be in touch? Okay, so that's a nice little summary of how far we've got so far. Okay, to achieve your maximum success, you must have scripts for sellers, buyers, other agents, other business owners, new additions to your database, like the database filter dialog, and your database itself, like the harvester dialog that we're using with our database. Scripts and dialogues are simply about being prepared. Now, the dialogues that I'm teaching you in this course are specifically focused on this piece of the puzzle, lead generation by referral. Of course, there are other scripts and dialogues which are brilliant that are out there for, let's say, listing presentations or buyer consultations or moments of negotiation or any of the many things that you do in your business. And I would suggest jump online, do a search, go onto Tom Ferry's website. They've got excellent dialogues for all sorts of aspects of real estate. But we are going to focus on those dialogues necessary for working by referral. There's a quote from Tom Ferry that I want to read to you because I thought this was really good. Why are real estate scripts so important? Real estate scripts are misunderstood. They aren't about making you sound like a cookie-cutter robot and not allowing you to be yourself. It is exactly the opposite. They're about giving you a framework for communication so that you can break the ice and get your message across clearly. Scripts give you the freedom to be yourself without fumbling for what to say next. A good real estate script makes it easy to pick up the phone. That is such an important point he makes there. The entire point of having a script is to be prepared and always know what to say next. The only way your scripts are going to sound natural and actually make your life easier is if they become second nature. That will only happen through practice and role play. Excellent quote. Thank you, Tom Ferry. Our dialogues, the ones we're learning in this course, our dialogues are designed to produce certain desired results. They're designed to produce results. Obviously, the point I'm making there is I'm not teaching you things just for the sake of throwing a bunch of words into a bucket and then feeding up word salad soup to you. These dialogues that I'm teaching you are proven. Many thousands of agents have used them on our programs with wonderful effect. We know they work. If you will just take the time to learn them, which happens through practice and role play, so that when you're in an interaction with a client, whether it's on the phone or you're in person, you've got it, you know it, you can just say it, you can deliver it with ease. And the point is that will deliver results for you. This is about getting better results with the time and effort that you are making at the moment, getting better results with the same amount of time because you're using the right language, you're asking for the right things. Therefore, the more prepared you are, the better results you will get. Scripts and dialogues achieve the following. Number one, they maintain the focus of your message and prevent you from forgetting or neglecting the key purpose for your contact. So let's take the harvester dialogue as an example. I've said to you in this course that you can build wonderful relationships with your advocates and you can be communicating great value to them and keeping in touch such that they do begin to know you and like you and trust you. But if you do not take out your sickle and harvest the goodwill that you've built up and actually go and get those referrals, you will get a fraction of the referrals that you could get. So it's this tiny little change you're making by actually using that harvester dialogue. So the question then you ask yourself is, okay, if I've got all this goodwill and all these people are trusting me and there's apples hanging in the apple tree, so to speak, all I've got to do is go and get them. How do I get them? How do I actually harvest the referrals that my advocates are sitting on? And the answer was very simply, we use that harvester dialogue. Oh, by the way, Mr. Jones, if you know anyone thinking of buying or selling their home who would appreciate the level of service I provide, please call me with their details, and I promise to look after anybody you refer to me. You just use that little dialogue over and over and over and over again with your advocates. You will get exponentially more referrals than you would if you simply said, oh, well, nice chatting to you and we'll see you soon. Cheers. It's just such a little change. And yet, the point I'm making there is that a good dialogue prevents you from drifting from the most important moment on that phone call. Secondly, scripts and dialogues give you confidence to make personal contact. That's the point that Tom Ferry was making in that quote that I read to you, that it makes it easier to pick up the phone. You know, once we get into the phone call side of our training in the next session, you're going to start seeing what the daily and weekly goals look like in my system. And if you've got 300 advocates, you're going to be making probably around kind of 8 to 10 phone calls a day to advocates, and you're actually going to block time out of your diary every single morning for lead generation. Lead generation is going to become a far more structured and important part of your business, certainly if you are like most agents who don't have a very clear time blocked session for lead generation. Now, as part of that, 8 times every morning making phone calls, I guess on your personality type, it's more difficult for some of us than for others, but can any of us say that we just love making phone calls every single day? Well, it's going to be a lot easier if you know what you're going to say on the phone call. Now, that's partly what the item of value does, because you're phoning advocates and there's immediately something to talk about. Anyway, Mr. Jones, I just wanted to see if you got the little item I sent out this month on the dangers of overpricing. You know, that's a particular danger in our industry, and what we see is sellers shooting themselves in the foot because of this pricing thing. And so I thought it was an interesting article, and I hope you found value in it. There's something you can say on every single phone call, and you know at the end of the phone call, you're going to end it with, oh, by the way, Mr. Jones, if you know anyone thinking of buying or selling their home and appreciate the level of service upright, call me for details, promise to look after anybody you refer to me. Okay, makes it easy to make personal contact. The only way to have the ability to deliver a dialogue when in the heat of the moment. When I say the heat of the moment, I mean you're no longer sitting with Uncle Stephen on the Referral Mastery course and you're comfortable. Maybe you've got a couple of your teammates with you and you role play the things together and you love it and it's great and it's wonderful. Now all of a sudden you're actually on a phone call with a client. You're in the heat of the moment, and now you've got to hold on, Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, just hold on. What page was it? What page was that dialogue? What was it called? The harvest? What? You can't be fumbling around when you're on the call with Mr. Jones. You've got to have it. You've got to know it. The only way for that to happen is for you to know it off by heart. Off by heart. You've got to absolutely have memorized the dialogue, and it just comes naturally. So, I mean, you can hear when I say, oh, by the way, Mr. Jones, if you know anyone thinking of buying, selling their home, to appreciate the level of service upright. I mean, it's just so much a part of my language, a part of my understanding, a part of my memory, that I can just deliver that thing in my sleep. You need to get to that point as well. Let's read Dirk Zeller. Do not become sidetracked by the poor salespeople who have poor delivery. Scripts and dialogues are often knocked because of poor delivery. Tremendously skilled salespeople are well scripted. You just cannot tell that they're speaking from a script. Constant practice makes the difference. Listen, nobody wants to be the phony telesales that within the first 10 seconds of this phone call, I can tell the guy's reading something on the other end of the phone. None of us want to be that, and I'm certainly not trying to turn you into that. But the reshaping of your language is something that's important. So you've got to find the balance there. The only way to learn a dialogue off by heart is to practice it over and over. You've got to practice these things. And practicing with a partner is called role playing, and is a very effective way to learn a dialogue. I don't know if you've ever role-played anything with anybody. Now, if you work on your own and you're always in your own in your office and you don't have anybody around you, the next point in the manual says get a coach or a colleague that you can do this with. And I think this is one of the best things a coach will do with you, is that they will role-play the dialogues with you in different scenarios so that you become more adept at using them and being able to flow with a conversation while still keeping your message on point. Get a coach. Personal coaching is incredibly valuable for real estate agents, and it's worth every cent that you spend on it. But if you've got colleagues that you're doing this course with, can I suggest that you pair up with someone and you commit to each other that every week you're going to have a little time slot where you role play your important dialogues together. The more you role play the dialogue and you've got someone responding to you, the more you're going to internalize and memorize the dialogues. Okay, so the 6 major dialogues for working by referral, we've done the first 4 already. The database primer dialogue, which was to prime your initial group of advocates. The database filter dialogue, which was to add new people to your database. The harvester dialogue, oh, by the way, Mr. Jones, is to ask for referrals from your advocates repeatedly. The 4th one was the lead warmer dialogue, to ensure that Mrs. Edwards, the referred client, is expecting your call. And then today we're going to do the client duplicator dialogue, which is designed to get referrals from all new clients immediately. We're not going to do the client party speech in this session. I think I will wait for the session we're doing on personal contact where we talk about client parties. I think I'll leave that discussion till then. But today we're going to do the client duplicator dialogue. So let's talk about working with new clients. In our case, that was Mrs. Edwards. Remember, Mr. Jones referred us to Mrs. Edwards because they played tennis together. We went to go and see Mrs. Edwards, and we did our listing presentation, and she gave us the listing. Now she is a client. We are now going to begin marketing her home. Now, that's what this next discussion is about. How do we get referrals immediately from Mrs. Edwards? And in fact, it's even more than that, which this next statement in the workbook is going to bring out. The people you are serving now, in this case Mrs. Edwards, are the most likely to refer you immediately because they are constantly thinking about your transaction together. I do want to just impress that upon you. Mr. Jones, he's your advocate. You've been keeping in touch with Mr. Jones for 2 years. He gets the value item every month. He gets the phone call, hey, and then, oh, by the way, Mr. Jones, you've really got him to critical mass and he is now supporting your business regularly. Wonderful. The point I've just made in your workbook is that Mrs. Edwards, who you've just met, whom you've just now got a listing from, she is now immediately more likely to refer you than even Mr. Jones is. How can that be true? There is a thing in the brain called the reticular activator, which makes us notice things that we are emotionally heightened about. So I'll give you an example. For those of you who are ladies out there who have been pregnant, if you're a mom, you will remember, so I've been told, that when you fall pregnant, when you go to the shopping center and you're wandering around, you suddenly see pregnant women everywhere. Guys, maybe you'll relate to this one. You buy a new motorbike or you buy a new car and it's the brand new, Mercedes, whatever, and you drive out of the lot with your brand new car, you're very proud of yourself, and on the way home you see 3 cars, exactly the same make, exactly the same model, exactly the same color. It's like, man, I bought a light sky blue Mercedes, and everybody suddenly buys a light blue. That salesman, he tricked me, had 3 more of those behind the curtain that he was selling the same day. Are there more pregnant women around? Are there more of that particular type of vehicle around just because you are now involved? No, it's that previously you didn't notice them. But now that you're emotionally keyed to it, you notice it everywhere. So, question, what are the 5 things that people go through in life that get them the most emotionally heightened? We call them the 5 Ds: death, disease, divorce, debt, and departure, moving house. You look at those 5 and you think, man, how could moving house be as stressful as a death in your family, disease in your family, divorce, and major debt falling upon a family? Well, it is. Moving house, we know, is one of the most emotional experiences human beings go through. But because of that, Mrs. Edwards is in a heightened state of awareness for property transactions, for people moving house or wanting to move house. What happens is, Mrs. Edwards has been at dinner parties all her life, and people across the table have said, oh, we think of selling our house, or we're looking for property in another city for a holiday home, and it would just go in one ear and out the other. She wouldn't even notice it. But now, because she's in this heightened state, she's busy selling her own home, somebody way across the table says, we think of selling our home. And it's like, really? I'm also selling my house at the moment. It's pretty stressful, hey? Like, we're having to put on the thing on show, and we're having people traipse through our house, and we got this real estate agent's been wonderful with us, and I've been so happy. Oh, really? What agent are you using? And that's how referrals come about. It's through people just having conversations. So the question then is, if our current clients are actually like walking satellite dishes for property opportunities, how can we tune that satellite dish to just download straight into our business? How can you prime your current clients to give you the referrals that they're going to get into because of the discussions they're having about property? That's the question, and that's what this dialogue is designed to achieve. Your unique selling proposition, your USP, when you work by referral, there is a fundamental principle that drives the strategy of working by referral as opposed to other marketing strategies in real estate. And this is it. This is the unique selling proposition that you bring to clients because you work by referral. And this is what we're going to communicate to them in our dialogue. What is your USP? The most important point to communicate to your clients is your unique selling proposition, which is, I work exclusively by referral to serve you better. Okay, so we've got two things there. I work by referral, Mrs. Edwards, but because I work by referral, that means you're going to get much higher levels of service from me. Now, how do we link those two thoughts? And is it false? Is it kind of a bait and switch, smoke and mirrors movement? Or is this actually true? Is it true that agents who work exclusively by referral give their clients better service? And I'm telling you, it is absolutely 100% true. And I will explain that now with this dialogue. And in fact, it's not that I'm going to explain it to you. It's that you are going to explain this link to all of your new clients as you begin working with new clients. Right up front, you're going to have this conversation with them, and it's going to make sense to you when we go through it. So the client duplicator dialogue is designed to duplicate your current clients by educating them of four things. We're going to explain something to them. We're educating them. And in so doing, we are going to duplicate them. So one client leads you to another client, who leads you to another client, who leads you to another client. And you can just start rolling from one referral to the next. That's what this dialogue is going to help you do. So 4 things we're going to educate our clients on. First of all, how your industry works. Second of all, how you work as opposed to the rest of the industry. Thirdly, what you ask from them. And fourth, what's in it for them. Okay, that's the dialogue. How the industry works, generally how everyone works in the industry, but I work differently, how you work. Then what you ask of them, all I ask of you, Mrs. Edwards, while I'm working with you, is that you'd refer me to people. And what that means for you, Mrs. Edwards, is what's in it for them. Okay, that's the structure that's going to help you memorize the dialogue. This is a conversation you're going to want to have with Mrs. Edwards really early on. Maybe even in the first meeting when she gives you the listing, you're going to use this dialogue that night, or at least in the first couple of meetings. So let's look at it together. Now that we're going to be working together, Mrs. Edwards, it's important to me that you understand how I run my business. Most people in this industry, in the real estate industry, spend the majority of their time and their resources prospecting for new business. So most agents are always busy cold calling or door knocking or advertising or direct mail, stuffing things in your mailbox or trying to get big on social media. Now, I don't focus on that stuff. I build my business exclusively by referral, and I devote myself to serving the needs of my clients before, during, and after each transaction. And all I ask is that while I'm working for you, I would like you to refer me to people similar to yourself who are thinking about buying or selling a home and would appreciate the same level of service that I provide. And as long as you and my other clients keep referring me, I don't have to go prospecting like everyone else, which allows me the time and the resources that I need to give you the kind of service that I believe you deserve. Does that make sense? And I'd ask you, does that make sense to you? That is a perfectly legitimate claim of truth, because agents who don't have to obsess over where's the next lead coming from, have got far more time and resources to give to serving their clients. I mean, if you knew that every client you're going to deal with would lead you to your next client, you could entirely focus on giving your clients the kind of service that they do deserve. So I believe this is 100% true, and I think it's an awesome dialogue to memorize and to have with every single new client you begin working with. And that's in fact the next point I make in your workbook. Make this a serious, calculated, and deliberate discussion you have with every new and current client. And I like that word deliberate because it means it's part of a system. It means that you've got some kind of reminder or some kind of process that you follow, that with every single new client you ever begin working with, this part of your standard modus operandi is, I'm going to have this conversation with every new client. Make it deliberate. Okay, let's add the dialogue to our apple tree. And that's under the dialogue section. You'll see point number 5, we're adding in the client duplicator dialogue. And that then just leads us to the steps to mastery for the next 2 weeks. What do I recommend you give yourself to in these next 2 weeks? Well, I want you to keep role-playing that harvester dialogue. Oh, by the way, Mr. Jones, if you know anyone thinking of buying or selling their home. But I also want you to start role-playing the client duplicator dialogue, the one that I've just taught you. Do them each 10 times each day for the next 2 weeks. That's going to help you internalize them. Find a partner if you can, or even look into getting yourself a coach. Then, secondly, call 3 advocates per day and use the harvester dialogue. The reason I'm getting you to make 3 calls a day is we're not yet at the point in the seminar where I'm teaching you how the phone calls work and exactly what the daily, weekly, and monthly goals are, but you are already now going with the system. You've sent your first value items, so you do need to be having personal contact. So this is just keeping up the personal contact with your advocates, which is what I'm wanting you to do. And on every single one of those phone calls, you're using the harvester dialogue. Oh, by the way, Mr. Jones, if you know anyone thinking of buying or selling. And then thirdly, use the client duplicator dialogue with all new or recently acquired clients. So this is something that I want you to challenge yourself to do over the next 2 weeks. If you've got a relatively new client or a few clients who are relatively new, you can still have that conversation. Now that we're going to be working together, I want you to understand how I work. And then any new clients you get over the next 2 weeks, try this dialogue. You're going to be role-playing it every day. I want you to actually do it live with a client as well, with as many as possible. So those are your 3 steps toward mastery over the next 2 weeks. And in our next session, we are going to then address the personal contact side of the apple tree diagram. And we're going to look at the first 2 types of personal contact, phone calls and pop buys. And I'm going to begin helping you actually build daily, weekly, and monthly goals around how many of these should you be doing per week, per month, etc. So God bless you, and I look forward to seeing you in our next session.